Howdy folks, I am your Princess ChaoticAyana, you are all beautiful, and welcome to part 2 of my list describing which is the hardest Mario game. Now, this is part 2, in case you missed it when I said it there, it's in the title, the description. You'd have to be trying pretty hard to miss it, but who knows. Anyway, there is a link to part 1 above my head. If you want to click on that, go watch the video there, and then come right back here, and we will get on down the list. For everyone else, let's get started. And the 8th hardest Mario game is Super Mario Bros. 2 on the NES. So why is this getting listed as the easiest one in the second half of our list? Well, as you have probably guessed, it is Peach's hover move. In a 2D plane, this just makes dealing with enemies and jumps so much easier. I love my girl Peach, but she is totally overpowered in this one. Each level having a minigame after it that gets you extra lives helps as well, although unless there's one of those had to buy Nintendo Power secret tricks that I've been missing since I was a kid, it is entirely random whether you get any or not. Where the game proves harder than, say, Mario World 1 or 2 is mostly in its level design, especially as it gets on and there's a lot going on at once. Regaining your health after you take a hit is really kind of tough in this one actually, there aren't many options to do it, and because this game has this mechanic of being able to throw anything and everything as a weapon, there aren't that many actual power-ups. You don't get a lot of options in how to play this, you kind of just have to play well. That said, while the game does require a lot more moment-to-moment caution than anything listed in part 1, you will get to that infamous "it was all a dream" ending sequence without too much of a struggle here. And the 7th hardest Super Mario game is Super Mario Land on the Game Boy. So a little bit of a disclaimer for this and its sequel: when I replayed them this time around, I played them on an emulator. Largely because I don't have a Gen 1 Game Boy Advance or one of the original house brick model Game Boys anyway. As such, I've kind of had to roughly estimate from memory how much more difficult both of the games were whether you were playing on the smaller screen and no backlighting and that kind of thing. Now, Mario Land is by no means an easy game, but what makes it easier than the rest of this list is just how tight the control is. It's an early 2D Mario, and we are getting back to that point in history where overall level design in the games was just more difficult. Platforms were much smaller, jumps had to be much more precise, but the control you have over Mario in this one is absolutely rock solid, especially when he's airborne. That said, as the game gets on, it really does start to focus on the platforms being absolutely tiny, to say nothing of them dropping off the screen very quickly when they're stood on. The game gives out lives much more easily than Mario Bros. 2 did, but I found them far easier to run through, especially if there was one jump I was having a difficulty with. Now, all that said, the game is designed for a handheld, it's designed for going through on one fairly short playthrough, and once you're used to the jumps, you will see the end credits on this one. And the 6th hardest Mario game is Mario Land 2: The 6 Golden Coins on Game Boy. So, like above, everything I said about playing on an emulator applies here. I've kind of tried to work out how much easier that made the game, and it did make them both easier. Mario in this one is a much clearer on-screen sprite, looks a lot more like his old self. And in the early goings on, that might look like it's going to make things easier. Everything on screen is a lot clearer. But this ultimately comes at a price that is far too high to pay. Screen crunch. For those who might not have heard the term before, in short, because all the sprites in the game have been made that much bigger and the screen you're playing on is tiny, you just can't see all that much of what's going on in the level around Mario. This, for me personally, messes up reactions for jumps, reactions to enemies, reactions to everything really. You just can't see far enough. If the game had just like an extra 10 to 20% of visible space around Mario, this would be back in part 1 somewhere, because the levels aren't any worse than the ones in Mario World. But I can't see what I'm doing, and to top it all off, Mario is once again a little slidey. So overall, this one is maybe a little bit tougher than it was supposed to be, but good intentions on being easier don't save it from the number 6 spot. And the 5th hardest Mario game is Super Mario Sunshine on the GameCube. Alright, I know. I'm gonna have to be heard out on this one, alright? Because I know. It's fully 3D, you've got the ability to hover, you've got the water cannon, you've got that life bar, you can take more than 1 or 2 hits. Why is this game so far up on the list, huh? Well, essentially because everything is just so damn imprecise. Now, some of this is glitch related. The camera, for instance, has a mind of its own, way more than it does in Mario 64, actually. Mario isn't a little slidey in this one, but he's not particularly easy to control in terms of his direction and speed. And even with that hover functionality, it just doesn't help all that much when you're trying to land on something specific. Speaking of the platforming and the levels generally, there are times when you have to complete a sequence of very tough, very precise jumps, and it's still not even clear if you're going in the right direction. And despite being one of the collect the right amount of shiny thing to open the next level kind of Mario games, there just are never enough of them so that you can skip anything you're finding especially tricky. Look, this one surprised me too, alright, but it's absolutely deserving of a spot as 5th hardest Mario game. And the 4th hardest Mario game is Mario 64 on the N64. Okay, so yeah, a lot of what I said in the last entry applies here too, though as I said, I think the camera's actually a little bit more forgiving here. It's still terrible, but at least it appears to remember what its actual job is, you know, showing you where Mario is. The camera in Sunshine was prone to forgetting about that. Nope, the difficulty in Mario 64, and I know a lot of folks out there are gonna disagree with me on this one, is just how damn uncontrollable Mario can be sometimes. He's most definitely a little slidey, and the platforming doesn't appear to have had in mind either a character that handles like a shopping cart, or for that matter having the third dimension in hand. Now look, I don't want this to turn into a Bash Mario 64 session here. When it came out, it was a tremendous achievement and it showed that you could do Mario in 3D. But that's just it. It came first. And all of those quirks in its design just add up to an extremely tough game in my opinion, especially control-wise. I know that there are literally thousands of speedrunning videos out there with people showing off just how brilliant they can be with the controls in the game. Hell, I have seen this game completed blindfolded. But speaking for myself, as an average player, this was a tough game to finish. And the third hardest Mario game is Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES. So while I was ordering this list, it became really interesting to me to find where this game ended up, because I was remembering what I imagine a lot of people do, Worlds 1 through 3. They have nice big platforms, a slow introduction to new items, and sure there's some challenge, but overall what I'm getting at is that the game's difficulty curve is silky smooth. So what gets this game so far into the list right here is that we said no skipping anything and that killing Bowser was the criteria. And the last couple of worlds in this one are designed to be absolutely punishing. It's not one individual thing either, the focus is usually on the fact that there's just so much happening at once. And if you haven't worked out where you're supposed to be standing at any given moment, you're gonna take a hit. Now, I have seen the end credits on this one without using warps or cheats, which is something I haven't done with the last two entries on the list, but the last few sections are a genuine challenge, even still playing them now. And the second hardest Mario game is Super Mario Bros. On the NES. Yes folks, the original game is taking the number 2 spot here, and with good reason. Nintendo was still very much in their get all the yen out of the kids' pockets arcade style design mode right here, and it really shows. First off, Mario is not little slidey. Mario is in fact lot slidey. In fact, Mario is every other game except the number 1 pick on this list would call this an ice level slidey at all times. Early on, wouldn't be too terrible a thing except you have 3 lives. That's it. You can gain others as the game goes on, but honestly, best of luck to you because they are usually somewhere dangerous. Also, the amount of stuff happening in later levels is kind of insane. Hammer Brothers especially are an absolute nightmare to deal with without taking a hit. Can't lie to you all, I have gotten far enough in this one for Toad to tell me the princess is in another castle, but I am afraid that's where she's staying, because I never made it to the end. And finally, the moment you have all been waiting for, the hardest Mario game in my list is Super Mario The Lost Levels on NES. Okay, so first off, take everything I just said about number 2 on this list and apply it here. Mario is lot slidey, lives are extremely limited, etc, etc. Now add in things like the very first power-up you see in this one is a poison mushroom that kills you instantly, and the real first power-up is hidden right next to it. That will put you in the headspace of whatever sadist invented this game. It wants you dead. Hell, it probably wants your family dead as well too. I think at my best, I made it into the first castle on this one, and then I gave up at pretty much sheer frustration. The game hates being played and wants to make damn sure you know that fact. Tiny platforms, limited lives, and this is all in the very first part of the game here. Lost Levels very much earns the crown as the hardest Mario game, and I can see why this isn't the sequel they brought to the EU and US. Honestly, I think it probably would have killed the series if they'd done so. So that is my list, folks. Do you agree? Do you think I'm insane for putting Mario Sunshine where I did? Let me know in the comments. I always love reading them. Next week we will be taking a look at Bravely Default 2. It is my first time actually trying to genuinely review an RPG, and I'm interested to see how it goes. I will see you all then, folks. Until then, thank you for watching the video. I have been your Princess ChaoticAyana. You are all beautiful. Peace. I'm out.